Beijing, 1630. A Ming treasury official sits before a ledger that no longer balances. Outside, the silver that once flowed in torrents from Japanese and Spanish-American trade routes has slowed to a trickle. The dynasty has built its entire tax system on a single metal, silver, and for decades that arrangement worked beautifully. But the global silver trade has shifted. Spanish galleons are landing less frequently. Japanese export restrictions have tightened. Inside the treasury, the numbers are immovable. Taxes are owed in silver. Silver is scarce. Men who cannot pay their taxes become men who cannot eat, and men who cannot eat become the kindling for rebellion. Within 14 years, the Ming dynasty will be gone. The empire did not fall to a superior army first. It fell to a balance sheet. This is not a story about one dynasty's misfortune. It is the same story, told in different costumes, across every civilization that has ever tried to pin its wealth to two metals at once. The bimetallic system, the decision to define your currency in both gold and silver simultaneously, sounds like diversification. It sounds like prudence. It is, in practice, a slow-burning fuse. When the ratio between those two metals shifts in the outside world, the empire that refuses to acknowledge that shift triggers a mechanical death spiral it almost never survives. By the end of this episode, you will be able to read the warning signs before the treasury official ever opens the ledger. To understand why bimetallism always fails, you must first understand what it actually promises. A government that adopts a bimetallic standard declares, in effect, that one unit of its currency equals a fixed weight of gold and also a fixed weight of silver, at a fixed ratio between the two. Rome in the 3rd century BC maintained a rough equivalence. Medieval European kingdoms wrestled with it. The Carolingian monetary system, the Spanish Empire, Napoleonic France, the 19th century Latin monetary union, all of them tried to hold two metals in a legal marriage at a ratio the law decreed and the market perpetually ignored. The problem is elegant in its cruelty. Think of the bimetallic system as a clock set to the wrong time zone. The clock looks authoritative. It ticks with precision. But it is calibrated to a world that no longer exists, and every hour that passes widens the gap between what the clock says and where the sun actually stands. The moment a major silver discovery, or a collapse in silver demand, or a surge in gold mining tips the real market ratio away from the legal ratio, the machinery of arbitrage begins to grind. An arbitrage, once it begins, does not stop voluntarily. Here is the mechanism in plain terms. Suppose the law says 16 ounces of silver equal 1 ounce of gold. Suppose the global market, responding to new silver flows from Potosí in the 1540s, says it now takes 18 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. The legal rate is stale. Any merchant who brings 16 ounces of silver to the mint and receives a gold coin in return has just received a gift. He can take that gold coin, sell it on the open market for 18 ounces of silver, and walk back to the mint with 2 extra ounces of silver as profit. He will do this as many times as the mint allows. Every cycle drains gold from the system and floods it with silver. The good money, the undervalued metal, disappears. The bad money, the overvalued one, circulates everywhere. This is not speculation. This is Gresham's law, named for the Tudor financier Sir Thomas Gresham, who observed it operating in 16th century England with such mechanical certainty that it functions more like physics than policy. The Spanish Empire provides the most dramatic illustration. Between roughly 1545 and 1650, the mines at Potosí in modern-day Bolivia produced an estimated 85,000 tons of silver. It was the largest single injection of a monetary metal into a global system that the world had ever seen. Spain held a legal gold-to-silver ratio far below what the flood of new silver warranted. Gold left Spain. Prices rose catastrophically. By some estimates, European price levels tripled over the course of the 16th century in what historians now call the price revolution. The empire that controlled the greatest silver mine in history found itself, paradoxically, unable to hold its gold and unable to stabilize its currency. The mechanism was not treachery. It was arithmetic. France under Napoleon provides the next chapter. The Napoleonic Code institutionalized a bimetallic ratio of 15.5 to 1, meaning 15.5 ounces of silver for every ounce of gold. For a generation, this held reasonably well. Then California gold rushed to market after 1848. Then Australian gold followed in 1851. The sudden abundance of gold pushed the real market ratio down. Gold was now cheaper relative to silver than the French law admitted. Instantly, silver became the undervalued metal. Gresham's law reversed its direction like a tide pulling back from shore. Silver began to drain from France. By the 1860s, France, Belgium, Switzerland, and Italy, bound together in the Latin Monetary Union of 1865, were all hemorrhaging silver from circulation. The Union attempted to cap silver coinage to slow the drain. It was effective the way a bucket is effective against a flood. By 1878, the Latin Monetary Union had effectively suspended free silver coinage. The bimetallic experiment in Western Europe was finished. Which empire do you think we most resemble right now? Tell me in the comments. The Ming collapse completes the triangle. Unlike Spain and France, the Ming did not mine silver, they imported it. Their single whip tax reform of 1581 under Zhong Zhuzheng was a genuine modernization, converting tax obligations from grain and labor into silver payments. It streamlined an ancient bureaucracy. For decades it worked. But it tethered the dynasty's fiscal survival to the global silver supply chain, a chain the Ming controlled not at all. When silver inflows from Japan and the Manila trade collapsed in the 1620s, the tax base collapsed with them. The government could not fund its military. Rebellions compounded. The Qing dynasty swept in from the north in 1644. The mechanism was not invasion first, it was monetary contraction first, and invasion second. Now consider the false belief that runs through every one of these episodes. Spain believed its empire was structurally different from prior empires because it sat atop the largest silver reserves in the world. France believed the rigor of the Napoleonic Code made its monetary law more durable than market forces. The Ming believed the sophistication of their administrative reforms had made them immune to external monetary shocks. Every empire believed that its specific arrangement was the exception to the pattern. And here is the important point, that belief is not merely an error. It is exactly the symptom. The conviction that this time the ratio can be held, this time the arbitrageurs can be regulated away, this time the law is stronger than the market, that conviction is precisely what delays the adjustment until it becomes catastrophic. The empire does not respond to early signals because it has philosophically committed to the idea that the signals are wrong. How do you read the warning signs before the treasury official opens the ledger? Watch the circulation patterns of the two metals. When one metal quietly disappears from everyday transactions, when people hoard it, when it stops showing up in wage payments, when merchants accept it only at a premium, the legal ratio has already diverged from the market ratio. That divergence is the first crack. The second warning is fiscal dependence on a single monetary input, whether that is silver from Potosí or bond purchases from a single foreign creditor. Diversity of monetary funding is not decoration, it is structural resilience. The third warning is the government's response to the first two. If the response is to legislate the ratio into compliance rather than to adjust it toward reality, the fuse has been lit. History does not record a single successful case of a bimetallic empire winning a sustained argument with the global commodity market. The ledger is a patient institution. It does not care about flags, dynasties, legal codes, or administrative genius. It records what actually moved, what actually drained, what actually remained. The silver crisis is never truly about silver. It is about the gap between what a government insists is true and what the market has already quietly decided. That gap always closes. The only variable is whether it closes through orderly adjustment or through the kind of rupture that ends dynasties. Ming, Spain, the Latin Monetary Union. 3 different centuries. 3 different continents. 1 mechanism. The clock was set to the wrong time, and the sun kept moving. Every great power believed it was different. The ledger disagreed. Subscribe, 1 collapse decoded at a time.